Hey guys, Micah from Black Bear Custom Kydex. I've got a holster to show you today. This one is for a Smith & Wesson MMP 2.0, and this is the 3.6 inch version. Obviously, I have the blue gun for it, so if this is your model, you can have a holster made for you without obviously having to go without your weapon any period of time. If you're a local customer and you have a firearm that you can drop off, of course I can work with that. If you're not local and you can't drop it off, then obviously we'd have to do something like a blue gun arrangement where I'd buy one and work that out with you. But all right, so this one is going to a gentleman named, oh shoot, I forgot his name. I think it's Daniel, and he is getting an IWB holster. This can be worn regular IWB or AIWB. And as you can see here, it's got a holster wedge on the back. It's also got this Kydex concealment claw. This is one that I make myself. I've stopped using the manufactured claws because they just aren't strong enough. The ones that I make out of Kydex hold up much better. They are thicker. This is a 0.125 inch Kydex, so doubled over. As you can see, it's folded, doubled over. That's a 1/4 inch thick of Kydex. Very, very rugged stuff. It takes an immense amount of pressure to bend this, and the holster is likely to bend before the Kydex does. I've also added this little reinforcement plate on the back, which does help a little bit in keeping this stable. The biggest thing it does is it prevents you from being able to kind of move, shift the claw around. It wouldn't shift much anyway, but this does help and keeps it really, really sturdy and locked in place. What you're looking at here on the front side, you've got a foamy clip. These are called FOMI, foamy clip. You can see I have stamped the logo into it, and it actually has a fully adjustable ride height and cant. You'd probably want to just really lightly loosen these two screws, and then you can muscle it in a lot of different directions. But you can see here, you're able to do this kind of tilting. You can tilt to both sides, and you can slide it up and down. These are just two slots. I'm not sure how well you can see that on the camera, but two slots about a 1/2 inch long, which allows you to adjust that ride height and that cant. So that works out really nicely. Depending on how far you cant it, you're going to find that the claw doesn't do quite as much as it would have if it were straight, but it should still work in any position that this belt clip can get into. So you've got some options. This looks a little bit funky. This is something I've never done before, but you can see here you've got a little Kydex panel on the top here that aligns with, there's 6 holes spaced at a 1/2 inch down this stretch here. Basically he had asked me, would I be able to put ulti clips on this at some point in the future if I wanted to. So the answer is yes. You can absolutely do that. You can do 2 ulti clips on this thing if you really want to. How you're going to have to do it is one ulti clip would go somewhere in this drill hole spacing where you see the claw attached to, and the other set would go in this vertical row here. This also opens up the possibilities of other types of IWB clips if you wanted to switch to something like a grip hook or J hook or something along those lines. You can see the basic difference between an ulti clip and grip hooks and J hooks. The difference between those types of hooks and this foamy clip is that the foamy is screwed in at the top and then suspends downward, whereas the other ones are screwed in at the bottom and they come up and over the belt and then hook underneath it. So those are a little bit more complex maybe, but they require that the holes be down lower on the holster, whereas this requires them to be up high. But he had asked, David, sorry I forgot his name, David had asked if I could put a foamy clip on it for now and then make it possible to add different types of clips later. Now this panel here, this Kydex panel, is not 100% necessary. You don't need it, but what it is doing currently is it is protecting the leather a little bit. Let's talk about the leather. He had asked originally if I could do a leather backing to make it more comfortable on him. But once we switched to, or sorted out the whole design and it was a taco design, I decided I would just put leather over the whole thing, upgrade that for him, because it looks kind of weird to have the leather just stop and then there be Kydex. So there is leather coating this entire holster. I think it came out looking really nice. It's all black, obviously. It is waterproofed. It is dyed. All the edges are buffed, sanded, beveled, and slicked. So you have a nice seamless edge between the Kydex and the leather. I think this looks really nice. I absolutely love doing leather work. I love bonding leather Kydex, and this one came out really nice. As for the fit, you can adjust the retention using these 4 screws here. It is a little bit of a tricky dance between these 4, where if you tighten just one down, you might have to tighten some of the other ones down, and you also want to make sure that they're all roughly the same level of compression around that box, which is kind of difficult to do. You just have to pay attention and look at it really carefully. But if you let one go a little loose and the other 3 tight, you might wind up with some weird compression, which causes one side to bulge up a little bit, and then your retention goes a little wonky. Right now I have it set up exactly how I like it, which is you get a really good click, you get excellent retention. Gun is certainly not going to fall out on you. At the same time, it's a fairly easy draw, and as you can hear, there is a rattle in it. The reason there's a rattle, you can tighten it down so that there's no rattle. I like to leave it so that when I'm holding it in hand, there's just a little bit of a rattle, because when you put this into your waistband, there's going to be just a little bit of extra compression on it, and that's going to hold it in place. You're not going to feel this thing rattling at all on you. The pressure of your body and your belt and your pants pinching this shut just adds that little bit extra it needs, and you still get a good draw. So if you tighten this down to where there's no rattle, it's a little bit more difficult to draw, and then you're adding pressure on top of that, which makes it perhaps even more difficult. And I just think it's really important that you be able to comfortably draw with ease when you need your firearm. So this is a life or death thing, so I try to make it as functional as possible. The other thing with this and with all of my holsters is that there's a generous finger groove cut out right here. The reason for that is so that you can really get a master grip on your firearm before you draw it. You want your middle finger to get right up against the bottom of that trigger guard, so that when you draw, there's zero readjustment necessary. You're already in position. All the time I see Kydex holsters that come up, either the Kydex just kind of trims off at an angle, but something would be obscuring your finger from completing that full grip, and that's really a bad idea, because if you have to adjust anything after you draw, you might already be a half second behind the curve on that. So really important, I think. Full grip prior to drawing. You also have a full sweat shield here, so as an IWB holster, you don't have to worry about your rear sights digging into you, and you don't have to worry about sweating on your slide and deteriorating it like that. One final thing to talk about here, this is leather. Sweat will over time affect leather. This is waterproofed, but over time you're going to want to touch it up and do a little bit to just kind of re-waterproof it. So what I would recommend is, you don't even have to take any of the hardware out. You don't have to remove any of the components. Just get yourself a little container of mink oil paste. I highly recommend this brand, Fibings. They do great stuff, and all you have to do, I would say, for an IWB, for something you're carrying every day, probably do this like once every month or two, and all you have to do is literally just get the tip of your finger saturated a little bit with some of this stuff and start rubbing it on. You're going to want to do it probably before you go to bed, so you can just let this sit out overnight and really soak in. But you only really need to do like 1 or 2 thin coatings of this. You'll see it kind of disappear pretty quick. And if you do see any buildup, any pooling, anything like that, let me show you what to do. I'm going to put a little extra on here just so you can see it. Alright, so that would sit for a little while before it disappears, because there is a fair bit of it there. So what you'd want to do is just grab yourself a cloth of any kind, preferably a lintless rag, and just buff it. It's really quick, it's really easy, and doing something like this maybe once a month would preserve the leather for a very, very, very long time. So you have the advantage not only of being able to preserve your leather, this is high quality leather, so it's going to take the product really easily and it's going to last a long time. But the other advantage you have here is that it's bonded to Kydex, which is a hard shell, obviously. So your leather's not going to be able to flex and bend the way a regular leather holster might. And so your leather here, you could make this last literally a lifetime. This could be something you pass on to your kids and them to their kids as long as you take care of it. So, all right, so that is what I've got for you guys. I'm really happy with how this one came out. I really like doing holster work. The M&P is a great firearm to work with, and hopefully this is to David's liking. So guys, let me know what you think down in the comment section. Let me know what you think of the M&P 2.0. Do you guys have one of these? Have you shot one? Do you have a preference on which size slide you like? Personally, if I were going to carry an M&P, I'd probably go with the 3.6, this model here, because I do like compact and subcompact guns as long as they have a big enough handle for my hand to reach. And this is pretty much at the lower limit, but it's very comfortable in hand. So I would absolutely get one of these. But love your comments down below. Let me know what you think of the gun. Let me know what you think of the holster, and let me know what you think of different carry positions, wedge, claw, all that good stuff. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you sticking around for my rambling. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. God bless.